Take 3 Gen Xers, give them a topic about music, movies, pop culture, or whatever, and how it relates to them growing up in the 70s and 80s as part of Generation X. Add one person from another generation to see if there's any common ground, and you've got Solve for Gen X. Starting now.
Matt, you shaved. Why did you shave? Why did you give up?
I didn't give up. I got a haircut and then they shaved it down and then they told me like what it was. They were like, it's a 1.5 on the side and a 2 here. And so I was like, okay, I think I need to trim it down now. This was a couple days later. And I did. And then it was like it was a different razor size. It was not great.
And maybe it was a baby boomer razor instead of a Gen X razor. And y'all were using two different things. Yep. Welcome, everyone, to Solve for Gen X. This week's episode is called Our Middle Name is Danger, because as Gen X children, it's basically a miracle we survived. We are here purely by the grace of God and Ralph Nader, whose book, Unsafe at Any Speed, which was about automobiles and how dangerous they were, is part of what got us to the point of cars being required to be built with seatbelts in them. So prior to 1968, cars did not have to have any seatbelts in them. Basically, okay, so starting from when we were babies, car seats were not mandatory. Car seats for children, for small children, babies, were not mandatory until 1985. Seatbelt wearing it was a state-by-state issue, started becoming mandatory in the 80s, and like pretty much everywhere by the end of the 90s, it was mandatory. The one state it is not mandatory, New Hampshire.
Still.
Their motto, live free or die. And they mean that specifically to the car.
Seems like
and they're thinking about changing it, live free and die. The first bike helmet law was in 1987 in California. That was a state-by-state situation. I think it still is state-by-state, whether or not you have to, but there were literally no laws for wearing bicycle helmets until 1987. Smoking laws. In like the 1800s, they were like, children are not allowed to smoke. Children can't buy cigarettes. Then in the 20s, the tobacco lobby was like, let's be chill. Let's let people do what they want to do. And so it's gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But they really it was state by state again, and they varied wildly. And not until 1989, most states had one that like the lowest age was like 16 or 15. And then in 1984 is when 21 became the drinking age. That had been state by state. That was a federal one. So I don't know. That's like sort of a wide gamut of things, of like safety issues that I feel like we dodged, although we weren't dodging as many bullets as I feel like people are now. I don't know if that's true.
And probably there were generations before us that were really dodging actual bullets.
Genuinely dodging actual.
Those weren't outlawed.
They never will be.
Never, damn right.
But we're going to talk about this and so much more on Solve for Gen X.
Solve for Gen X.
It was the age of parachute pants,
Skinny ties, neon headbands.
we rode our bikes, closed helmet free.
A nicotine from a vending machine.
Decades, pastimes, memories, and master song. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X. Solve for Gen X.
Hey everybody, I'm Ashley Ward, Gen X 1972.
Nate Starkey, Gen X, 1971.
And I'm Matt Vogel, Generation X, 1970. I'm the oldest. I can't even talk anymore.
Oh my God. Yeah, it is truly miraculous that we survived.
The one that is interesting to me, like right now when I'm thinking about it, you mentioned like an age limit on cigarettes. But that you didn't even mention that like banning cigarette smoke in public places, which also has happened.
I mean, yeah, that was like we were fully adults when that happened.
Oh,
but I was just doing a.
But I think even then.
Thank you for pointing out my failings.
No, it's not about failings at all.
You didn't
really
even mention that.
yeah.
Well, it just was making me
even care.
It was just making me think, and also how money interests really affect these things a lot. Because I think like still like probably like maybe I'm wrong, but I think in like West Virginia, you can still smoke in like yogurt stores and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of places
Yeah.
where you still
Specifically
can.
in
North
yogurt
Carolina.
stores. They
Well, yeah.
encourage you to smoke in the
The
yogurt
thing
store.
is, froyo is a little bit better with a little secondhand smoke as a topping. The topping you didn't ask for, but you absolutely need.
You gotta have it.
I think about my mom bringing me home from the hospital. Do you know how she did it?
I'm gonna guess the same
Holding
way.
me
Yep,
in
that's the
her
same way.
arms.
Tied to the roof.
That's and like all
Just holding
babies would
right
just
there.
travel and like in the front seat.
Oh
Like
yeah.
so now like you cannot ride in the front seat in most places until you're 13 or you weigh a certain amount.
Yep, that's true.
It is wild because they were having little babies just sit in the front seat, and presumably as a toddler they'd just have you up there too. They might put you in the back because if you were crawling around too much or something, but they certainly weren't belting you.
Get up here and sit down
weren't-
in the middle. Do you remember
So it's
that
just
thing
like-
in the middle? The thing that
Oh,
would
yes.
go down here and you'd sit
Yeah.
on top of that.
Oh,
just-
we would.
Launch you through the windshield.
My sister and I, when we would travel to my grandparents, so one set of my grandparents lived 4 hours away in Alabama. One of us, it would be like on the way there, one of us got to lay on the seat and the other one had to lay on the floor over the hump. Can
Yeah.
you, like, never in a trillion years would anyone allow that now?
No.
We had like a Toyota station wagon that had like, you know, the little back. We called it the back. It was behind the back seat. We would just hang out flopping around back there.
Why not?
Oh, the number of pickup trucks I rode in the back of on country roads, major roads, highways, did not matter. Just like riding in the back of a pickup truck,
we
waiting
did that
to
all
die.
the time. Yeah, we did that all the time.
All
I
the
feel like
time.
we did that on a trip where the pickup truck had a like a shell on the back of it, and my brother
Yes.
Jason and I were in the back, like sleeping bags in the back, hard steel, you know, bed of the truck, and we're just like going down I-70 to wherever the heck we were going, and just like probably in freezing as well. It was probably
Oh,
very
God,
cold.
yeah.
But just riding in the back of the truck,
We would
let
do
alone
it. I mean,
without the top.
I don't think I have ever been in the back of one that had a top. We would be in the back. People would sit on like, there'd be like a little, what do you call it? Cabinet thing
Yeah, like
on
a tool, like a
tool. Like people would sit on top of that.
Yeah.
Like
I remember
you're essentially
standing.
out of the vehicle. You're
I
out of
remember
the
standing
vehicle.
up, looking over
Yes!
the top of the truck, just
Are-
out at the world. Why?
Are we just all jumping in on
Yes,
trucks, or are we
I'm
taking
just
turns?
jumping in.
Jump in
I don't
on
know.
trucks. Did you ever ride
I'm
the back of
fired
the
up.
pickup?
We used to surf on the back of the pickup.
What?
In the back of the pickup in high school, we would literally stand in the back and surf and see how far we can go, and whoever's driving, you know, is at their discretion to see how crazy they would go to like make us fall or not.
Some
Holy
people in my town died doing that.
Oh
when
my
they were in high school and I was in middle school, it was this
Oh.
big deal. And then like my mom was like, "Well, I don't want y'all riding in the back of pickups anymore." And I was like, "But it's fun."
Well, in the movie Teen Wolf, there was a thing where the guy would Styles would get up on the roof of the van and surf. And I think that's where we got the idea to like surf in the back of the pickup truck. And of course, Teen Wolf was really good at it. And he was doing handstands and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It really was like those kinds of things to me. The just the vehicular part of things was so wild. And I do distinctly remember when it became the law to wear your seatbelt in the front seat. That you had everyone in the front seat had to. In Georgia, apparently that was in 1991, and like I would have to be reminded all the time because prior to that, my aunt would always try and get me to wear the seatbelt, and I'm always like, okay, but I never wanted to. And then having to do it, I was like, and then like you read them. I remember reading the statistics around it, why this is happening, and I was like, oh. Because the harm reduction from seatbelt usage, which the national average seatbelt usage at this point is like 89% or something. Because there's a lot of states where a cop can pull you over for not wearing a seatbelt.
Mm-hmm.
There's a decent chunk of states where they can't pull you over for not wearing a seatbelt, but if you're not wearing a seatbelt, when they pull you over for something else, they can ticket you. But you can't just be pulled over for that. But yeah, like it was, and then I was remembering, and I didn't do a bunch of research on this, but Ralph Nader was the big crusader around seatbelts in his books. Unsafe at Any Speed was the big like guys, I've been trying to tell the auto industry people are dying needlessly because they don't want to spend the money to retrofit seatbelts into cars. They don't like the way they look. They don't, he had all these things and basically shamed the industry into doing it.
This is why I still vote for Nader in closely contested elections in swing states. I still do because he was right.
Yeah. He might not even be on the ticket anymore, but you still do it.
Yeah, I write in.
He was really an advocate for public safety and in some ways really changed
No, he's awesome.
the way that
I joke about Nader, but I love Nader.
People viewed that stuff. But then I remember the first time I was around someone who had a child who was not a baby, not a toddler, and they had to put them in a special seat in the back seat, like an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
In essentially a baby seat, like what I would have called like a modified baby seat. And they're like, oh, well, it's the law. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? And that's a big thing, is like how much pounds you are, how old you are.
Yeah.
That is, you have to be in these special seats for a period of time. You have to be rear facing, or there's like something. There's all these like
because of the airbags,
and it went. But that's in the back seat, bro.
Yeah,
that's in the back seat.
Yeah, and I have had 5 kids. Each one of them has been in a car seat, from a baby seat all the way up to the the kind of like the toddler seat. They had to face the back for a while, and they faced the front, and then they got in the bigger seat.
My nephew was so excited when he was first allowed to ride in the front seat of the car, and I was like, oh my God, this child has lived over a decade on this planet and has never ridden in the front seat of a freaking car. Yeah. That is mind-boggling to me. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously helpful and it's a safety thing, and I'm glad for it, but I'm also just like, that is crazy. That experience is so different from like our experience growing up.
So I'll just want to add my childhood car experience is same, that we would like go from Denver or little suburbs, Wheat Ridge, to Estes Park, where my grandmother lived, in our Volkswagen Rabbit with the hatchback, and my brother would full on be in the hatchback. And like, I remember at night, it was like we pretend like we were in a spaceship, because it was just Estes Park, just stars, and that's all you could see is like just dark and stars, and we were in the spaceships and just running around, wrestling and like playing around in that hatchback. The other memory I have, car-wise, my mom had a Fiat Fox, I think is the car.
A Fox Fiat?
Fox Fiat.
I don't know.
And it had a sky roof, and I remember riding with our heads through the sky roof.
Jeez.
Yeah. We definitely did that in high school.
I remember that because there's a cop that did say, hey, like on the bullhorn, you can't be riding outside like that actually I think was a law. But it's like, as far as my mom was concerned, she didn't care if we did that. I was like, oh, they're having fun. Great.
We would climb from the front and back seat, like while we were driving, you would flip between, like, that's not a thing. You can't do that now.
Yeah.
No. Kelly would ride in the back, behind the back seat on the window that goes down, just the where you put your Kleenex and stuff up there. She would ride up there. They would lay down.
She was tiny.
She was tiny, yeah. And Flynn today, like now he's 11, he is just now weighs enough that he can sit in the front seat. So it is like a big deal.
It's like a big deal. You become like able to be part of society. It's like basically.
For us, it's the equivalent of like losing our virginity at some point.
Sure, it is. In a way, it is.
Around
it
that
is like
age
that.
for me.
It is so. I mean, in terms of like other safety things, I've just always been very cautious. I'm very like risk averse in terms of like riding bikes and roller skating. And of course I fell and I skinned my knee, but I never broke any bones growing up. I was a very risk averse child. So I was too.
I didn't have
didn't have too many things like that. I mean, not this guy, but
I was not risk averse. I was doing whatever I could to push the limits at all times.
We lived near a lake, which I think I've mentioned before. And this lake had water moccasins in it. Well, water moccasins are like one of the most poisonous snakes in America. They're really dangerous, and they live like in the shallow parts of lakes. And one day we were just all outside, and we hear this blood-curdling scream, and it's my next door neighbor's sister, Kim Woody's sister. Her name, I think, was Lisa, maybe?
Lisa Woody.
And she lived in the trailer. They had like a little travel trailer on their in their yard, and she pretty much lived out there.
I think we had a Lisa Woody at my school.
Well, it wasn't her, but
I had a
anyway.
Woody Lisa at our school.
that was your tree friend.
There was a girl named Lisa who gave me a Woody once.
Oh, boo. Cut this out. Edit all of this. Anyway, so she screams, and we realize that she had almost stepped on a water moccasin.
Ooh.
Water moccasins are scary looking. They're black. So they're just super scary. And then the neighborhood children all got in the back of a pickup truck to watch as the neighborhood men attached it. They didn't call animal control. They didn't do anything that makes any kind of sense. They attached it to it looked like a whip. I don't know exactly what it was. And they whipped it in the street to murder it.
They picked a snake up and...
Yeah.
I don't know. No, it was attached to something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I'm sure I'm mixing it up in some kind of way. And so it broke into pieces.
Oh my gosh.
And each piece had a life of its own?
But they still moved because of the nerves. But I'm y'all, did y'all not? And so we're all poking around at this extremely venomous snake. And I don't remember seeing the head. Hopefully they threw the head away. But it was that was, I just don't think that would happen now. I don't think a bunch of children would gather to watch the murder of,
I don't think so. Well, you'd be surprised.
I think in rural and urban makes a difference.
I mean, we did see a lot of snakes. I was around cottonmouths and rattlesnakes and moccasins and all those things. But oh God, I was so scared of getting bitten by one in a lake, and you would see them pop their little heads up.
I don't remember an interaction with a snake that way, and this does sound a little dangerous, but I do remember my dad. My dad grew up on a farm, and we would go up there on weekends, and his brother had a horse, and it was it was just a huge horse. And my dad took me on a ride on it. I was sitting in front of him, and my dad would just gallop at full speed, which was terrifying.
Yeah.
No helmets or seat belts on this horse.
Yeah.
But then I do remember him running and then stopping because a snake, a big, long snake, was crossing the dirt road in front of us.
I did remind me though, playing basketball.
Yeah.
And seeing a huge spider on the court, and somebody threw the ball at the spider, and the spider, what it looked like the spider exploded. What happened was the spider had a bunch of baby spiders on its back. Ooh. So when the basketball hit it, it did literally explode with 1,000 spiders all over the place.
And then y'all had to play them in the basketball game?
Yeah.
And so it was spiders versus skins?
Yeah.
For ease of biting?
It's easier that way. It's so much easier.
That was terrifying, though.
You were talking about seatbelts and no seatbelts. And in 1983 or 1984, we had a van. We were heading toward church. And this was all four of us in the van, and nobody had on seatbelts. So we were heading down the street this way when another car came barreling through, missing the stop sign and hitting our car and spinning it around.
Ooh, that's bad.
That's bad.
I was in the middle, and Jason was there, and my mom was in the passenger side. My dad was in the driver's side. And we were all fine. Nothing really bad happened to us.
It's so funny that you say that because my dad was in a really bad car accident when I was in third grade. Went through the windshield of his car. He was hit from behind by a drunk driver. And I think from that point on, we all wore seatbelts because I was driving our car, picking my sister up from school. My mom was in the passenger seat. I was driving. I had just had my license for 2 weeks or something, not long. And we got hit by a car turning left who just misgauged it. But it was good that I was wearing, because basically my side took the brunt of the hit, and I couldn't get out of the car because the door was dented in and stuff.
Speaking of safety measures, my sister was in a car accident when she was in high school with a drunk driver. That was a really bad accident. She had to have a rod put in her thigh and all these awful, but she got a huge settlement for it and stuff like this. It was and the guy was drunk driving, but it made me think driving while intoxicated didn't used to be a law. I think maybe while we were in our lifetimes.
Maybe.
Yeah.
As a kid, one of my favorite things to do, like in the bathtub, would be like just to mix like the shampoos and like make little concoctions and stuff like that. Occasionally,
And the time you made mustard gas accidentally?
No. But I did one time. My sister and I did pour too much Avon Skin So Soft in the bathtub, and it burned our little cooters. And we had to like turn the sink on, and we were like, no, like, trying to get the cold water on our little coochies. But but that led to was going into the medicine cabinet and taking pills and things out, and just like playing with them, grinding them up, like doing stuff. Like I would like pop a couple of St. Joseph's baby aspirin because I thought they tasted good. I would just be like, what's it hurting? It's for babies.
They did taste good. They did taste good.
They were delicious. Like messing with medicine because there was no like, they didn't put the child safe tops on until the Tylenol cyanide incident.
Yeah.
They were not tamper proof or anything. So I would just like mess with like all the pills and medicines and have them out and be playing with them like they were toys. Like they were toys. All right, let's hear all your
I feel
tales
like
of daring do.
it's not as much as you might think. I already talked about several of them. The awful stuff we would, the car stuff, and like as teenagers, car surfing in the back of the pickup. So we talk about like we're lucky to be alive stuff. Like that is definitely like someone should have died.
Yeah.
And in another episode, I talked about riding my friend's dirt bike down the hill, and your story, Jason, reminded me of that, walking through the neighborhood covered in blood. And we used to try to fashion our own snowboards to go down the sledding hill on before snowboarding was a thing. Very dangerous. All those hills, all those, all that stuff was so dangerous. So I talked about the surfing trucks.
Pickup truck
surfing, inspired by Michael J. Fox. Another Michael J. Fox inspired bad idea was grabbing onto the back of cars on our skateboards.
Yes, Back to the Future.
We 100% did that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and like the neighborhood, adults would like, oh, isn't that great? They're doing just like they probably saw the movie too. I don't know.
Yeah.
And they'd like give us a ride, and they were totally into it. Could you imagine?
Gosh, I can't. I can't believe it.
Well, when I decided this probably isn't such a good idea to keep doing this, was my friend Ben, who was on the back, and there's just something about like when you get going too fast and it starts to get scary.
Yeah,
the stupid things that your brain tells you to do. And for whatever reason, his brain, when it started going too fast and was getting scary, his brain told him to jump off the skateboard.
Yes.
Oh my God.
I relate.
Instead of letting go, which is like the logical thing to do.
Yeah.
His brain told him to jump off the skateboard, and he totally fell and like skinned his arm to the point where bone was exposed.
Oh.
And he was so but he was so embarrassed, and because I was on the other side, and it's the sort of thing we did, and it was sort of like a see how fast we can get, and like you don't want to like be the kid who ruined the game or like got hurt doing it, and also the guy driving.
Yeah.
Could you imagine for him?
Oh my God.
It's like the kids are in the back, and then one of them disappears.
Oh.
But Ben jumped up so quick, and was like, "Hey!" Like with his broken arm. Hey!
Wait, was his arm broken?
I don't think it was broken. I think it was just a really bad skin, like down to the bone, kind of like skin was removed. But it's just funny to me. First of all, the instinct in his brain that told him to jump up, and then the second instinct was to jump up and let the guy know he was okay.
Fine. Yeah.
So to save face / not get in trouble or whatever is going on in his brain, where that's the priority now. We did used to put each other. Mostly, it was bigger kids doing it to me. I honestly don't know if I ever did it to anyone else. But putting kids in sleeper holds until they passed out.
Oh,
we would do that thing where you go.
Same thing.
And then someone
like hyperventilate,
and then you would like pass out.
Oh, this is definitely something that kids have died doing.
I'm sure.
I can't believe we would do that.
Just experimenting with either making yourself pass out or making your friends pass out.
Push yourself to the edge.
How stupid is that, right?
I know, it is.
Probably the most dangerous thing I would do as a kid is we would have full on drag races through the neighborhood in our cars.
Oof.
Like
Yeah,
like
no.
Side by
Grand Prix.
side? Like
Yeah,
side by
Grand
side
Prix.
thing?
Like no holds barred, like cut in front of each other, like to win the race through the neighborhood. That was
Wow.
by far probably the most dangerous thing I ever engaged in that probably should have resulted in somebody dying. And I was fearless. I would like go 80 miles per hour in like this neighborhood that's like a 25 mile per hour neighborhood, 35 mile per hour neighborhood. And we were like full on drag race. Could have killed someone. That would have been the worst thing, obviously.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Pedestrian killed ourselves.
Yeah.
We would have had that coming at least.
Wrecked
Hit
your
another
car.
car.
Definitely destroyed.
Like
Yeah.
another car coming straight at you.
Yeah, insane,
Oh.
insane. And for whatever reason, like, yeah.
I think they still do stuff like that.
Oh, I'm sure.
I
This
think
is
that
not a
still
new
goes on.
thing or an old thing or
But
whatever.
were you racing for pink slips?
No.
They were doing grease.
So joining us is my good friend Martin P. Robinson. Martin is a Sesame Street Muppet performer. He plays the roles of Mr. Snuffleupagus. He plays the role of Telly Monster. He plays Slimy the Worm. He plays the biggest puppet, Mr. Snuffleupagus, and the smallest puppet, Slimy.
Oh,
He's-
dear.
There he is. And he is also an artist and a puppet builder. Built the original Little Shop of Horrors plants
Yeah,
for the
Wow.
off-Broadway show and then the Broadway
Wow.
show. And has a long history in puppetry, but he is also a baby boomer. And that is why we have him on our podcast today.
Yes, that's the only thing that's important today.
We're just sort of talking about all the ways that you could get injured that maybe are more mitigated now, or just the dangerous life of a baby boomer kid.
I mean, if you believe in trends, it would be an assumption that I would make that as we have, as our society ages, our society cares more about the children, protecting the children, and even have songs like, what's the children's song?
Don't know what you're talking
Okay,
about.
well, there's a very,
Yeah, we're just-
it's
I'm
all about the
there's-
children. What's the song?
The children are our future.
Children are our future. Like,
The greatest love of all.
yeah, whatever. I mean,
I believe the children
are our future,
Okay, all right.
right?
Teach
We
them
are
well,
the
let
world?
them lead the
When
way.
we
Yeah.
were kids, children weren't the future. Children were in the way of the adults.
Ah,
That's the
right.
point I'm trying to
yes.
make.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
That's right.
And
They were-
so
they
was
were
that
cattle.
even more so for the generation before us? I wonder.
So I'm the generation before you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry
Okay,
to late. Sorry to that news.
No. It's I was born in 54. When were you guys born?
71.
72.
71. I graduated from high school in 72.
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
I know I look like her father, but I'm actually not
Children.
that old.
Back then, kids were like chattel and possessions, and I'm going a little severe because of course every parent has always loved their child in one way or another, but as far as safety goes, we bounced all around those cars. You smashed into windows. We were going through windshields left and right. I would bounce over the seat, into the front seat when my mom and dad were driving, and I'd bounce into the back seat and bounce into the back of the station wagon. I never went so far as to put my hands over my mom's eyes while she was driving. But that's I know kids who did. We would, we just, there was, people went through windshields all the time. My mom
Really?
was considered a safety nut because she drove a Plymouth, and it had the horn in the center of the wheel was metal, and it was concentric circles that came up to sharp point, so that if you stopped short, her face would then be imprinted with concentric circles. So she strapped a piece of foam on there, and people would make fun of her for having a chunk of foam on her steering wheel. But you stop short, and and what moms would reach out like this if you were in the front seat, which did nothing. Absolutely nothing. When I remember when seatbelts first came in, people would, you're restricting me. I would never do that. I wouldn't want to be strapped into the car while it's on fire. I remember, people saying that, and it was considered, a real kind of affront. And at first they were suggested, and they weren't made into law until somebody finally figured out that they were actually saving lives.
It was Nader, right? It was Ralph Nader in 68, I think, is when they became mandated to be in cars. You had to have a seatbelt in a car. Cars had to make them with seatbelts. And I think that was a Ralph Nader thing.
When was it that you were aware of, we're supposed to put this on?
Oh, well, first of all, it wasn't this.
It was just the lap belt.
Later. It was just a seat, just a lap belt, which would cut you in half if you stopped short.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably would.
No, I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It's 84, I think.
Really?
I did my research.
Wow.
Great. By 84, I was, a professional in New York City. And I one of the reasons I moved to New York was so that I would not have to drive, because my dear older brother was in a car accident, and I visited him in the hospital, and his face was hamburger, and his chest was almost crushed, and his arm, still has, bars and plates in it. And I saw, he went into the windshield, broke the windshield, didn't die, but, actually, the steering column hit him in the chest and pushed him through the roof of the car. Oof. Anyway, that was and I went to visit him in the hospital when I was probably 14, and made a life decision that driving sucks and I don't want to ever do this. So when I got a chance to move to New York City, it was I wouldn't have to own a car. I knew that, and it wasn't until I was 23 that I auditioned for a touring company, a touring marionette company, that a driver's license was required. So I started driving again, but only because I had to eat.
Let's back up from automobiles for a minute and think about when you were a little kid, what were the things that you might have done that could have been dangerous, that could have probably you shouldn't have done, or maybe you did do and you got hurt doing them?
I made a list because we spoke of this, and I looking at the list here. My dad was a smoker, and so I was around. Secondhand smoke wasn't even a thing. Nobody thought about that, but I was around secondhand smoke for years and years, and he would smoke in the car. Would open that little vent in the side and vent his cigarette out. But I was smoking the cigarette.
The little corner part of the window.
That little corner part of that thing.
Yeah.
And then they realized, this kind of sucks too. So there was that. I mean, that was foisted upon me. That wasn't a dangerous thing that I chose. Although because of that, I chose never to be a smoker. I was raised in Wisconsin, which was a gun culture. So I was raised with a house full of guns. I shot guns. I did target practice. I went deer hunting. I knew, the guns were all locked up, but I knew exactly where the key was, and I knew which ammunition went with which rifle, and which 45 and which P38. Things that my dad had brought home from the wars and things. But we never, growing up in a gun culture, we never loaded, and we would play with them, we'd bring them out, never loaded them, never shot them. I guess I did learn a certain respect for guns from my dad. But what we did play with a lot was explosives. You could get you know what a cherry bomb is. A cherry bomb is, make a nice explosion. Put a cherry bomb in your hand and close your fist. That's it. Then you're not going to be playing the violin anymore. But then there's M60s and M80s, and they're just small pieces of dynamite. And those were available over the counter in Wisconsin. You could at
the pharmacy. This is insane.
If not over the counter, they were certainly available over the border.
Yeah.
into Minnesota, and you could get that stuff anywhere you want. So people were flushing those things down the toilets in the schools regularly. And just destroying the entire plumbing system. Whatever generation is before me, my uncle was about 10 years older than me, and he had his best friend's dad brought home a rifle grenade from World War II. Good old rifle grenade. You put it on the end of your rifle, you shoot the rifle, and the tank explodes. He brought home a live one of those. Hey, brought it. And his son knew what it was. So he and my uncle set it up in the basement with a hammer on a pivot that was set to, strike the end of the rifle grenade. And then they put a string on it and went up into the attic and pulled the string. And the entire house went.
Oh my
and
gosh.
They blew a 10-foot hole in the basement ceiling. We never did that.
No, that was the other generation. The generation before
had no compunction whatsoever.
So my question is this this fascination with explosives and utter destruction? No, with explosives, is that a thing for your family? Is that a thing for that part of Wisconsin, or is that just a baby boomer thing?
Because all your media is World War II based, and
those are all good questions. I had my other friends of mine and we would cook up explosive things.
Is this just rural life in Wisconsin, or is this about your family, or is this about the generation, you think?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I can muse it. Like in Wisconsin, you're pretty scrappy. Yeah. You learn how to service and strip a chainsaw. You learn how to where to shoot the deer and how to gut it, and when to. You learn how to fell a tree where you want to. You know how to dig a latrine. I can do all those things. It's just part of growing up.
Do you still have family in Wisconsin?
Friends.
Uh-huh.
All the smart people got out. No, Wisconsin was a fine place to grow up in.
I'm wondering if the kids of Wisconsin are still at those sorts of hijinks.
Good. That's a good question too.
Well, I was wondering if the accessibility, although I feel like my dad has talked about accessibility to M80s and things like that, and he grew up in Alabama, but I wondered if it had to do with like ice fishing or something. Like it was like a thing that people there's a legitimate need to blow up a dam or to I want to blow a hole in this lake.
No.
Why don't you get out the car and blow up that dam for us so we can move on through? We're going to be late for church.
I would tell you that if you don't blow a hole in the ice if you want to go ice fishing. You'll go right down into the lake. No,
I've clearly done a lot of ice fishing.
I have done ice fishing, and you use an auger, big wide auger to dig a hole. It's the most boring thing I've ever done in my life. I was sitting there with my uncle, in a fish shanty, just waiting for some dumb half-frozen fish to bite some dumb worm.
Well, I'm sorry I wasn't there to tell you the idea of throwing the.
Yeah, I know. Had you been there?
Oh, well, there are those that that go fishing with M80s or sticks of dynamite. And when you weight them, it's highly illegal, but the shock wave will knock out the fish and then they float to the surface.
Is that good eating?
What?
It doesn't harm the fish. You never heard of that one?
I've heard of it.
I've heard of it.
No, that's dynamite fishing.
But, are they they're stunned, so you still have to kill them, don't you? You have to. When they come up, they're not dead.
They're not dead. They're usually stunned. I mean,
Wow.
depends
Because it
how
depends.
close they were to that.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Explosion.
Oh man.
Let me ask
Yeah.
you. You talked about when the idea of seatbelts were first introduced to you, and probably there were no helmet laws when you were growing up. There weren't any when we were growing up until maybe later in our youth. But so this, and then you sort of like facing those regulations, like, oh, come on, nanny state, leave us alone. Kind of a little bit of a thought there. Do you think it was? And speaking to your parents. Even looser for them. Like, I'm wondering if this idea I have of like it keeps trending towards safety. They call like nowadays, like it's the gummy generation, because people can't even take regular pills anymore. They need gummies. Like, that's how soft we've become.
Yeah.
You know,
It
like
has to be a
even
gummy vitamin.
Even medicine has to be delicious now. So I'm wondering, like, you weren't working in the coal mines. So maybe the generation before you thought that your generation was soft.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? My
I was kidding.
My dad fought in World War II and in Korea. I mean, he kind of grew up lower middle class in Detroit and got beat up regularly. I mean, he had a hard time, and getting called up for Korea when he had kids at home, because he was in the reserves, and they thought, he definitely had a harder time than I've had.
And then you've also had kids, and do they have it easier than you did?
Oh, so much easier.
Right, see?
We started saving for Lyra and Ripley's college education when they were born. We took out a massive insurance life insurance policy. We arranged for, if anything would happen to Annie and I, that exactly what would happen and where they would be taken care of. My generation never did that.
Give me your philosophy on this. Why the trend in this direction?
I think at some point, some smart people decided that maybe it was a good idea taking care of the kids. Maybe it was a good idea educating the kids. Maybe the kids actually would grow up into better adults than their parents, more responsible adults than their parents, more socially conscious people than had come before, and that treating kids like a pain in the neck that you put up with, in the long run was probably a pretty crappy idea.
Oh, so people figured out that children are the future.
Yeah. Somebody had to pay their Social Security. My generation, the hippie generation, they say, oh yeah, the hippie generation failed. There was some really, the idea of being socially conscious, about being, thinking about what's going on in your head, about what's going on with your emotional state, what's going on with the planet, things like recycling, and things like safety. And that's all. I'm sorry, that's my generation that kind of came up with those things and enacted them.
Well, so now speak to me about the other side of this philosophical idea of, maybe we should be setting our kids up for an easier time, a better future. The other side of that maybe would be, and it's this idea of like, are we preparing them for hardships? Are we being too easy on them? And
I totally agree.
I think it comes from the same hand as for those of us of older generations, almost taking pride in how hard we had it. It's that when I was your age, I walked up the hill and 2
miles
5 feet
in
of
the
snow
yeah.
both ways,
Yeah.
like taking pride in that sort of idea. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, and I struggle with that one pretty much every day as as I give my children as I plow the way for them through life. I have 5 kids. I've paid for all of their schooling that they've asked for. Any school that they ever want is it's always been a done deal. I've got an older daughter who's 39 who lives with us, but if you asked me how she makes a living, I really wouldn't be able to tell you how. But she lives here and is welcome, and we love her so. But it's rent free, of course, and I question how if I've made things too easy for any of my kids. I mean, I know that my 15-year-old daughters, I'm making sure that their job is to go to school and to do the best they can with it. That's their profession now, and I'm trying to give them life lessons as well. And every time I do, it's like, Dad, what is this, another life lesson?
I think it's so hard to be a parent and to know when to say, I can't help anymore. I mean, I think about, like a parent of a child who is an alcoholic. And there might be a certain point in that relationship between the parent and the child where the parent has to say, I can't help anymore.
Right.
And I cannot even imagine the pain of making that decision to say, like, I can't help anymore. You're on your own, knowing that parent's genetics are part of why their child is now having this struggle. It's a really mind-boggling thing to think about, like, well, what is too much? And how do you know when you're, I'm deciding not to help, and hopefully that will help.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and I have a brother who's an alcoholic, and I struggle with that one. How much I can?
How much?
How much?
Yeah, it's
I
not
can.
just between a parent and a child; it's anyone
That's
and
true.
someone they
That's
love. Ashley and I don't have kids, so it's very easy for us to make very smart opinions about what parents do wrong and do right.
Yeah.
We can decide
Because we're from the outside looking in, it's very obvious to us.
Yeah. Well, Marty, I want to thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
today.
so much.
And
Yes,
thanks so much. This was
thank you.
awesome.
But I do think with After Us, there are such big sweeping changes that you'd have to go well before us to see as much a difference.
Yes.
I think this idea of that again, I'll come back to it, that children are the future. It's that song that changed everything. That there was this idea that our utmost priority as a society, as American society, is to protect children. And that's the one thing everyone can agree on. Yeah. Keep children safe.
Yeah.
That happened during our lifetime.
Because
before that, it was always children should be seen, not heard. Get them out or keep them out of the way. It's an adult's world. Now it's the kids' world. And
it definitely changed as we were growing up, for sure.
I think it was a boomer thing. I think sort of like what Marty was talking about, of the kind of hippie generation started really shifting that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it might be our generation of parents who really took it to the next level, though.
Yeah, maybe. And who knows? Maybe not all for good, but some for good. Most for good.
Yeah,
for good or for ill.
If more children are surviving car accidents, that's only a positive.
That's for sure.
That's a net positive. Although nothing's more annoying than trying to put a car seat into a car. Never want to be a part of that again.
Car seat,
and
that's
then
not funny.
Until they're old enough to do it themselves, and then you're trying to do it for them. And they're like, I got this, Aunt Ashley.
It's time to pick a topic for next week.
Okay, let's see what we got. Cartoon you can't believe was on TV. So I guess really that's not a great title. Clearly I wrote this. So I guess sort of an amazing, crazy.
Yeah.
something with cartoons.
Yeah, it could probably
We'll
broaden
figure
out
out
a little
a way.
bit from there, right?
Yeah,
I
from
would
just
think-
like the one cartoon.
because
you
it's
can't
a,
believe was on
only
TV.
one.
Thunder, 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 Thundercats.
Are you
Oh,
okay?
it's too old for those.
He-Man. Dun, 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 dun. I love
After
He-Man.
school cartoons, we talk about it next week.
Yeah. We can't continue.
Can't do it now.
Special thanks to Martin P. Robinson for being on the show today.
Solve for Gen X is mixed and edited by Nate Starkey.
The theme song was written by Nate Starkey and Matt Vogel and performed by the Mighty Weeklings.
Our podcast art was created by Dave Hulteen at davehulteendesign.com.
You can find Solve for Gen X wherever you listen to podcasts.
And it's also available to watch on YouTube.
Just search Solve for Gen X.
If you're so inclined, please rate and review our show. It really helps our visibility.
Or whatever.
Whatever.
Solve for Gen X is a Welcome Matt and Married Nate and Ashley production.
Thank